Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Yemi, and today I'm going to do, as you can see from the title of the video, I'm going to do a video on passing the GRE. Now, it's not like I'm in the best position to give you some huge advice on what you're going to do to ensure you get over 300 the GRE, but I'm going to tell you based on my personal experience what the GRE is like and how you can go about it, my tips on what I think you should know to prepare your strategy for passing this exam. I wrote the GRE last year, I think, yeah, around this time last year, October, I think 30th or 31st, I can't remember well, and it was a Friday. So I'm going to be giving you tips on what you should know about it and how you can go about your preparation for the GRE. So if you'd like to know more about it, do stay tuned. So welcome back to the video. As I said earlier, I'm going to be breaking it down based on my personal experience with the GRE, and I'm going to tell you the things that I knew before the exam, how I went about it, and how I think you should go about it to get higher than what I did. I got a little over 300. It wasn't really up to what I wanted to get. I needed about 315, 320 to get into the school I wanted to get to, but then it didn't happen that way. It was a little bit lower than that, and then I couldn't get into the school I wanted to get to. But well, the good news about the GRE is that it's valid. The result is valid for 5 years. You can use it to apply into a master's school or a master's program or a PhD program. So I still have the result valid for 5 years. There's still time for me to use it some other time. So the GRE is graduate record exam. It's, as I said before, it's an exam for students who intend to go into a graduate school. That's either you want to do a master's or a PhD program. Now, it's written by graduates or by undergraduates. Some undergraduates take it while they're still in undergraduate school. So now it's basically a test that just measures your abilities in maths and your quantitative reasoning abilities, your verbal reasoning abilities, and also your essay writing skills. Basically, that's what the test is about. And it usually lasts for about 3 hours and 45 minutes. That's the test itself in the exam hall. It's about 3 hours 45 minutes with a 10 minutes break, and then I think there are 1 minute break in some other places. I can't really remember well, but a lot of this information is actually available on the GRE website, so you could actually go to the GRE website to check it. I could put it in my description box at the end of this video, so you can go to the site and check it out. I think it's ETS website. I think it's www.ets.org, but I will still put it in my description box for you to see. Now the test has like 3 parts, 7 sections. What I mean by 3 parts is the quantitative section, the verbal section, and the analytical writing section. Now, for the analytical writing section, you have 2 essays. You have 1 argumentative essay and 1 issue essay. I think I'll probably come back and do another video on the math section, the verbal section, and the other section, just give you techniques on what you could do to pass each of the sections. So for the quantitative section, you have like 2. For quantitative part, now you have 2 sections. You have 2 quantitative sections. Each of them has like 20 questions that you're going to answer. And for the verbal, it's the same thing. It has 2 sections. Each of them has 20 questions too. And as I said earlier, the analytical writing part has 2 essays for you to write. Now, there is usually 1 experimental section, and that section is usually in the it's either of the verbal or the quantitative part. Now, what I would say about this is that if you are someone who you're very good with quantitative parts, you probably should just go and pray or something that the experimental section favors you and it comes out as a quantitative section. And if you're good with the verbal, you could pray likewise too. Now, why am I saying this? Is because usually you can't tell which of the 3 sections is actually going to be experimental. So if you have 3 math sections, you know that your math section is definitely the experimental section, but you cannot tell which of those math sections is actually experimental because you're just going to be writing it, and it depends on the order in which your exam starts. For instance, if your exam starts with you log into your system and then you see that what you're starting with is a quantitative section, then you can be sure that you're having your quantitative section as the experimental section. Whereas if you log in and you find out that your verbal is your experimental section, you're going to have to prepare to write 3 verbal sections. Basically, that's what it's about. Now, also, why I said you should pray is so that you know, the one you do better and actually would favor your score in a way. I think it has some sort of influence on what you get. I don't know. Now, for the scores, now the highest score you can get is 340 and the lowest score you can get is 0. Now, by 0 I mean 260. Now, the range of scores from 130 to 170 for each of the sections. That's for the maths, I keep saying maths, for the quantitative section and then the verbal section. So for the analytical writing section, the score is over 6 points. So for instance, you have 2 essays, each of them is, you know, scored over 6, and the 2 will be put together, and you know, you get an average of it, and then you have your score. So for instance, if you have, there are 2 essays, as I said earlier, there's the issue and the argumentative essay. So if you get like 4 over 6 in your issue, and then you get 5 over 6 in your argumentative essay, the 2 will put together, so that's 4 and 5, you have 9, and an average, the average will give you 4.5. So your score for analytical writing would be 4.5, and that's actually a very good score. I think most schools require you to have like 4.0 and above for their graduate program. Now, writing, I also want to talk about writing the GRE over writing the GMAT. Now, the GMAT exam is mainly for business schools, basically for anyone who wants to get into, you know, a business school, wants to do a business program, an MBA, or, you know, master in finance, or all those kind of courses. Now, for me personally, I wanted to do a course. I was not sure whether I was going to do a program, either the finance or a proper IT program. So I basically picked the GRE so that I could, you know, be able to apply for it too. Prior to the last 2-3 years, most schools were not really accepting the GRE score for business schools, but these days is now accepted for several business schools. So if you want to just be on the safe side, you're not sure yet what you want to do, you could just write the GRE instead of writing the GMAT. But if you're very sure you want to go into a business school, you want to do a master in finance or whatever, you should just go ahead and write the GMAT. I think that's over 800. The GRE used to be over 800, but now it's just over 340. Now, I also want to say this, that the test is actually computer adaptive, section by section. Before, was it 2011? I can't really remember now, but I know that before it used to be adaptive, question by question. That's for instance, if you start your questions now and then you pass like the first, I'm talking about the previous one now. If you pass like the first 6, 7, or I think 8 questions, I can't really remember now. If you pass that, you know, level or something like that, you'll be able to, the computer will sort of rate you and determine whether you're a very good student, or depending on the number of questions you get out of the 8, it's determine whether you're a very good student or you're, you know, not so good. So it makes your question, you know, harder or easier, harder, easier, harder, easier. That's how it goes. So for instance, now that it is now section by section, you start off with your math section, and then maybe out of 20 you get like 17 or 18. Your next math section is going to be a little bit tougher than the one you just wrote. So when you get to your next math section, well, permit me to say math now, I'm already used to saying it. When you get to your next math question, your math section rather, you discover that if you discover that it's a little bit harder than the previous one, well, then you already know that you actually did well in that one, but then you have to now work harder to actually get a high score on this one, or else your marks will actually drop. Now that's the same way it goes for the verbal section too. If you get a very high score when you start off, know that your next section is going to be really tough. So, and the thing is that you can't tell which of them is your experimental section, so you have to really work hard on every section, you know, equally. Now, also, let me see what else. Now for my tips on textbooks that you should use. Now I use a range of textbooks. I think Manhattan, I used Kaplan, I used Barron's, or is it Barron's, I really don't know. like I used a lot of softwares basically to prepare for these exams. I also attended lectures, so I'll advise, if you have the time, do attend lectures. But if you feel you're good enough to read on your own, you have a study plan, you're very disciplined and all that, it'll be good for you. You can decide to just wing it on your own. Now there are also actually a lot of online resources and websites that you can go to check for tips and answers to your questions and all that. So if you cannot afford to buy textbooks, or you don't have where to find softwares that you can use to prepare for the exams, I would recommend that you download PowerPrep. It's free and it's on the ETS website. Now, one thing that I found out about the PowerPrep is that when you download it the first time, you use it, I think it has like 2 sections of GRE tests. So you do the first section, you see your score over 340. You do the other one, you see your score over 340. And then one thing you can do is uninstall it and try and download it again. The questions are going to be a little bit similar, but you find a new set of questions. So it's like every time you download it, you get different questions. And if you have like more than one device, you have you have a Mac and then you have a PC, or you have other laptops or desktop in the house, you can download one here, download in another place, just to have the opportunity to try out different questions and get used to preparing yourself for the exams. And when you're going to test yourself, please ensure that you stay, because I think you have the option of deciding not to work with the time that is meant for the exam. So please just try and work with the time, so that you can really know how good you are and how prepared you are for the exam. Let me see, what else have I not said. Now I want to tell you to also ensure that you book your exam date early. Now the issue with that is, for instance, for me, I thought that I could just just go ahead and register anytime I wanted, and anytime I felt I'll be ready for the exam. Now for instance, you need about 3-4 months to prepare for an exam. That's for someone who is quite an average student, but for very awesome really good students, they probably need like 2 months to actually get ready for the exams. So 2 months and how many hours of study, can't really remember, but then about 2 months if you're going to be reading every day anyway. So if you need about 3-4 months, for instance, you want to write this, this is October, you want to write this exam in February, I think you can go ahead and pick your date now. No, not now, I think in December. So when you pick your date, you're working towards that date, and you know when you're going to write. You're not how would I say this now, you're not rambling or going about it anyhow. What happened to me was that I started lectures in, I think, late July or beginning of July, no, mid-July, about mid-July, and then I planned to write in September. But what happened was that I could not, because by the time September came along, there was no space. So you have to book your exams early and find centers around you, that's one that's close to your area, so you can register for the exams. So I did not book that early, and then it sort of affected me in the sense that I became tense, because the dates for the school I wanted to apply, the deadlines were coming along, and then I was already tensed, and then I started losing concentration in preparing for the exam. So I ended up writing late October, which was not what I initially planned to write. So most of the information I probably I'd retained in my head and prepared for the exam. With all the stress of trying to get a place to write the exam, eventually I sort of forgot a lot of them. So I would say that you just pick your date from 3 months. You know that you're going to use 3 months to prepare for the exam. Just pick your date from the beginning of that 3 months period, and know that this is when you're writing and your date is already settled. You can just go ahead and write your exam when you're ready. So that's I think it costs about $200 to pay for the exam, and you could do that online with your card. Yeah, and you also ensure that you have a passport, international passport. The form of IDs that, but I think it's just international passport that is allowed. I'm not sure, but I think that's what's allowed. The only thing that's allowed for the preparation of for submitting for the exam. And let me see, is there any other thing I haven't said? Now you get to see your scores for the quantitative and verbal section immediately after the exam. So to be put together, it's 130 to 170 range, as I said before. So basically what you get to do is what you get to see is your score for just the verbal and quantitative. You get to see that immediately over 340. But for the analytical writing section, you get to see that I think about 10-12 days after the date you wrote the exams. I can't really remember, but it's on the site, so you can check the dates. Don't come and quote me. Now, for when you're going to when you're done writing your exam, another thing I can advise you to do is keep checking till they post the result of the exam. Why I'm saying so is that when you check, for instance, if they post the results today and you check immediately, I think you're going to be able to see, a breakdown of your weak points and how far you pass the exam and all that. So you're going to see your weak points and know what areas you should work on in case you intend to take the exam again. But if you don't need to, probably you already saw your score was like 320 something and you're not bothered about taking the exam again, it's fine. You can decide to check the results whenever you want to. But sorry about the noise outside. But if you're not sure, you probably saw your score and you didn't like it, you can ensure that you check your result the day it comes out, so that you can know exactly what your weak points are and how to go about preparing for the exam again. So yeah, that's basically my advice. I think I've said everything that I plan to say about the exams, and I hope that you've learned a couple of things that you could apply if you plan to take the exam very soon. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'm really glad you got to the end of the video. I hope this was really informative, and I think I should do a video later on each of the sections, my techniques I think that excuse me, techniques I think you can apply to ensure that you pass the exams well. So I hope you do stay tuned to watch those ones, and please subscribe so you can be updated when I post a new video. And if you like this video, you can thumbs up so you can see more contents like this. Thank you very much for watching this video. Till I see you in my next video. Stay blessed. Bye.